Hello, I'm Megan Jones, editor at Calls and Health magazine, and I'm delighted to be joined by Richard Bassett from NICE International to talk about their latest research report. So, Richard, you've got this new report on the changing face of vulnerability. Can you tell me a bit more about it?
Yeah, I can. So we did a report last year, and we wanted to understand, how customers and businesses were thinking about vulnerability. It's a really close area that we're really interested in making sure that we are assisting customers in a better way. This year, we wanted to sort of understand what were the changes since the report we did previously. Are there new trends? Are we seeing improvements? Are people more aware of it, etc. So that's really that was really the driver of what we set out to do. And it's really interesting to see what we found on the back of it is that now 35 million or up to 35 million UK customers are now potentially vulnerable, and it's still the case that many people are unaware of that. And that just really highlights the need for the AI-powered customer service solutions that both help the customers but also support the businesses with their compliance as well.
So it's been such a change in space, looking at it already just 12 months on, and a lot's been changing already. So digging a bit deeper into the report itself, can you tell me a bit about the four key drivers of vulnerability that are outlined?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors that we have to look into, and of course, that our AI that we have from a nice CX1 Empower point of view, it's all driven around the SCA regulations as well and the consumer duty, which has been a real big driver for what we do. Lots of people, talk about the financial pressures. That's really where a lot of it's been driven from. But there's also the personal challenges as well, which are really challenging to recognise. But if we look at what those four key pillars are that that we're monitoring, it's really around the health challenges. It's the life events, the significant life events that take place. It's the low resilience, and it's also the limited capability or the confidence that users, consumers have on things like digital assets, etc.
And of course, another challenge is that many people who are vulnerable don't actually self-identify as vulnerable. So you can talk about a bit more of the challenges that creates for contact centres.
Yeah, so we have actually seen that over a million more vulnerable customers this report are now self-identifying, which is great. That's becoming, more showing that there's more comfortable, that consumers are more comfortable in what they're doing and discussing such sensitive issues, such as poor mental health. And I think that's really down to the fact that there's just a lot more information that's available and there's a lot more awareness around it in general. And they're also speaking more with agents in the contact centre, which is obviously really important from a CX point of view. But there's still a lot of customers who do not want to disclose, and they do hesitate when it comes to self-identifying, or they're not able to self-identify. They don't know that they're even vulnerable, and that could be due to fear, it could be due to embarrassment, it could be shame, or any of the above. That's something that's really overlooked with many organizations today. There's a big gap there. And also you've got to think about the people who are in the businesses, the advisors, and the advisors generally don't have that experience themselves. They don't have the understanding, and therefore the ability for them to identify what their consumers are thinking and are they vulnerable is an absolute huge challenge, which is something that we are trying to help organizations overcome.
Yeah, it's certainly a complex issue. And I think one of the ways that you're starting to look at simplifying that a little bit is by building in subcategories to help contact centres understand who they're dealing with. So the report also maps out the 7 hidden faces of consumer vulnerability. Can you explain a bit about what those are and why those subcategories are so important?
Absolutely. Well, it's really it's a huge reminder. It's a powerful reminder. The vulnerable customers, they're not a single, uniform group, and that's really the key thing. It can affect absolutely any of us, different points in our life as well. And whilst the previous report really revealed the misconception that vulnerability is primarily linked to the ages, particularly those who are over 65, the contrast of what we've seen from this year's report highlights that 81% of the Gen Z respondents were actually identified as being vulnerable or potentially vulnerable. And that's due to the financial confidence that they have, the mental health challenges that they have, relationship struggles, and human bias is a big misconception that we've seen.
I think another area is looking at what services and channels that vulnerable people actually want to be using. So another point that was pointed out in the report was that a third of vulnerable customers want organizations to be investing in better digital services. So can you explain a bit more about what's driving this behavior?
Yeah, and it's no surprise to me that more consumers are wanting to lean on digital more. If you think about digital, it's 24/7, it's easier, it's their preferred, method of communication just in general. But it also gives you the ability to be more anonymous and the ability to have a more open conversation where you might not have that fear, or you may not have that sensitivity issue of sharing information. So, we find that digital channels, it's given the empowerment to those vulnerable customers to have those conversations and to help have those, to make themselves more aware and to be more easy. And when it comes to discussing such challenges, with the advisors that they want to speak to.
So things are moving in a more positive direction. And another point in the report was that overall vulnerable customers are beginning to feel more protected. So what else has been significantly shifting the dial on this?
Yeah, well, the Consumer Duty Act, which came into play, a couple of years ago, has really made a notable, difference in everything that's taking place from a vulnerability point of view. We've seen that 29% of UK vulnerable customers, have said that they feel more secure since this has been introduced. But on the flip side of that, only 16% of all UK consumers are still feeling more protected. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done to raise the awareness, to get the safeguards in place, and to ensure that all the organisations, across the UK and beyond, are really adhering to the regulations and the guidance that's been established as well. So we are going in the right direction. It's great to see more people are feeling more comfortable, but it also just really highlights the fact that there's a lot of work that still needs to take place.
And of course, technology is going to play a part in moving all of this forward. So how's AI and automation helping contact centers to identify vulnerable people?
Yeah, well, if you look at what AI is doing in customer service automation, it's really a case of how do you understand those subtle cues? How do you make sure it's going across 100% of all the interactions? If you're not using AI, then you are relying on your advisors to understand who is vulnerable right now. And there's a lot of manual work that generally takes place on the back of that happening. If you're using, AI and, at NICE, with CX1 Empower, we have the purpose-built AI models in place. What this is giving us is the ability to monitor and identify, across 100% of all the interactions that come into a business. What are those subtle cues? Is it stress? Is it relationship breakdown? Is it something else that's taking place that we've understood? What's all the other metadata that we are using? And therefore, whether it's voice conversation, whether it's a digital conversation, we can then, support those advisors on those subtle cues, make sure that we're giving the real-time understanding or the guidance to those agents about what to do. And that could be a workflow, it could be a follow-up, it could be whatever else it might be. But making sure 100% of those vulnerable customers are detected and there's a proper process in place on the back of every single one of them.
So it's not just about identifying them, it's about supporting the agents to have those better conversations too.
Absolutely, supporting the agents and supporting the businesses so the businesses are doing the right thing. Many businesses want to do the right thing, they just need the tools in order to do so.
And as we come to a close, how do you hope these findings will impact the future of how contact centers deal with vulnerable customers? What do you expect the rest of the year to look like?
For us, we just want more and more organisations to recognise that there are a lot of vulnerable customers in the UK, and there's a lot of the processes that are falling through the cracks at the moment as well. That's from both the detection and, as you mentioned just a minute ago, the support on the back of that detection as well. So we just want it to be that more organisations are understanding that there is help at hand, and they can be using AI to help drive that, those interactions, that vulnerability, that awareness, and the process on the back of it. And that's really what NICE CX1 Empower is really trying to do, is giving our customers or any organisation across the world the ability to leverage AI to support their customers better and to support their businesses as well. So that's really what we see, is more and more of this happening. We've got great customers who are advocating at the moment, and we just want more and more of them to be, helping more customers.
So there's going to be a real spotlight on this and lots of positive change to come.